Students of class 9A and 9B, today's class is with the same topic, the Election Commission and Elections. Chapter number 3 points as I mentioned, direct elections, merits, indirect elections, merits, demerits of direct election, demerits of indirect elections, and general election. Now, what are the merits of the direct election? You know, in our country, there are two types of elections are held, direct election and indirect election. Direct elections are held in order to elect the political parties to be the members of a government or to be the prime ministers, the council of ministers, deputy ministers, cabinet ministers of a government. And this is done in order to run a government with full term, means 5 years. Now, what are the merits of the direct election? The direct election has some merits. Number one, it is in the interest of the people. The participate and the government, in the interest of the people, a government is, formed throughout the country through direct election. And next one, the people elected become answerable. The people elected become answerable, and therefore their responsibility increases. The people who become the part of an administration or government can take many responsibilities and is answerable to other people, and that's why their responsibilities are increased through direct election. And in direct election, another merit is that as large number of people are involved in the chances of limitations in intimidation and corruption are less, since a large section of people take part in the process of direct election, and people or their representatives are elected by them. In that case, corruption becomes very less. And next one, what are the demerits of the direct election? There are some demerits of the direct election. Number one, illiteracy, poverty, and lack of economic awareness renders the people unable to make the correct choice. Means some people who come to this line, sometimes they become illiterate, and because of their ignorance and poverty and the lack of economic awareness, they are unable to shoulder many responsibilities perfectly. That's why the right choice is not to choose this political line, but sometimes they come to this line. And another one, ignorance and innocence. Voters make them gullible to false electoral promises, sometimes due to ignorance. Some voters are motivated by the political leader before election. And these false electoral promises misguide the people. In that case, there is discontentment among the people due to false promises made before election. And election, another demerits of the direct election is these direct election of unsuitable and incompetent candidates adversely affect citizens and important policies. These also are affected. Now, what are the merits of indirect election? There are some merits of the indirect election. Number one, in this system of election, the drawbacks of ignorant voters is done away with. And it is more of a case of choosing the best, from the chosen ones, and therefore unsuitable candidates get eliminated. It is due to ignorance and illiteracy. some candidates who become the candidate of election, and voters does not choose them perfectly, and because of their ignorance, because of their illiteracy, sometimes they fail to understand the exact system of governance, and sometimes they get eliminated. And next one, less time of expense. Less time and expense in expense is involved as the number of voters is less. Where the voters number become less, where the voters number becomes less, in that case the amount of expenditure becomes less. But wherever the number of voters become increased, in that case the expenditure of conducting vote becomes also increased. And next one, what are the demerits of the indirect election? There are some demerits of the indirect election. Individual citizen loses touch with his or her government and is removed from its functioning. Individual citizen cannot take part and can be removed from this functioning. Why? Because they do not become a part of the government. So this is the most important demerit of the indirect elections. For example, one person become the member of the Rajya Sabha. One person becomes the member of the Rajya Sabha. But being a member of the Rajya Sabha, he cannot shoulder many responsible posts like the president. The president, to be the president, one person has to be the member of the parliament, member of the Lok Sabha, but not the member of Rajya Sabha, because member of Rajya Sabha cannot become the president of India. He has to be the member of the Lok Sabha in that case. And next one, the small number of voters become vulnerable to bribes but by rich and powerful candidates for his or her vested interest. And some number of our voters sometimes are motivated, perverted by some political leaders with money, and these candidates sometimes take undue advantages from election. But in the indirect system of election, this incident takes place. This incident occurs many numbers, because almost all members of legislative assembly as well as the members of parliament sometimes are motivated, provocated by the candidates with money, and this amount of money is too much high. That's why they cannot avoid it, and only for that reason there is no perfect system of choosing a candidate for the member of the Rajya Sabha. Sometimes they become member anonymously without following the correct system of choice. And next one, since the primary voters are not directly involved in this system, people may lose their interest in participating in public matters. In that case, primary voters are not directly involved in this system. Primary voters. Who are primary voters? Those who cast their vote for general election, for direct election, for the election of municipality election of panchayat. They are primary voters. They cast their votes. And since they cast their votes independently for their respective areas, means from panchayat, from municipality, or from block level, they can cast their votes independently from their own respective provinces or from their own respective areas. And these voters generally do not involve in the system of vote, in the system of conducting votes, or in the system of withdrawing the names of the voters. That's why these system is known as primary votes, and primary voters are not directly involved in this system, and people may lose their interest in participating in public matters. And people in course of time come to know that they have no interest in showing or in participating in public matters. That's why they remain neutral. Sometimes they remain neutral and do not get themselves involved in this very system. And another types of elections also are there, out of which I would like to discuss the last one. Then today's teaching will be completed. The last one is general election. What is general election? The election which is held throughout the country, and people directly take part, choose their representative by casting their votes. This is known as general election. The first general election was held in the year 1952, and such elections are held every 5 years in our country. And when people choose their representatives for the Lok Sabha and the state assemblies from the constituencies from all over the country, it is called general elections. That means initially general election is held and people choose their candidates as Prime Minister, Deputy Prime Minister, or Deputy Prime Minister. And the first general election in our country was held. The first general election was held in the year 1952 in our country. And people choose their representative for the election, and the state legislative assemblies for the constituencies all over the country. It is called general election. So in order to fulfill the seats for general seats in the legislative assembly, and for the reason of making a government throughout the country, general election is held. The first general election in our country was held in the year 1952. And another point is that when people choose their representatives for the Lok Sabha and the state assemblies from the constituencies from all over the country, it is called general elections. Means general election is held not only for a particular state, but it is held throughout the country in order to establish or set up a government, a steady government in the center, from where the other states are ruled by them. That's why, according to the distinguished leader of Indian politics, Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru, he got it done. He declared the fixed date for election in the year 1952, according to which general election was held throughout the country, and there was no candidate from the Congress, but later on the other political parties also took part. There were some candidates from Congress, since Congress was the only political party who took part in general election in the year 1952, and Congress got 2/3 majority, and Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru, the leader of the Congress party, he unanimously became the first Prime Minister of independent India in the year 1952. That very election, general election, was held, and then he got the officially he became the Prime Minister of India. And another thing is that by-election, midterm elections. These elections, what is by-election, what is midterm election, I shall discuss for you next day. After this, today's discussion is over. Thank you.